Do you remember any farms?
Huh?
Do you remember any farms around here?
Any farms?
Yeah.
Well, there was never. The park
Yeah.
was not a park. It was a fig orchard
Oh.
when I was a little boy.
Okay.
And my grandmother was raising me in the little house, it's right on the edge of the park and the end of the street.
Right.
There.
Yeah, I know which house. Yeah.
I grew up in that house there.
Okay.
And it was an odd thing. As when I was a senior in Inglewood High School,
Right.
my dad bought me a used Model A Ford one weekend, and I went for a ride, and I stopped on the other side of Inglewood, and there was an airport there. It was not a regular cash type airport. It was just a civilian airport, was
Right.
all it was.
Right.
And as I was out there on Saturday, my dad gave me the key to the Model A, and I went for a ride, and I drove by that airport, and I'd never really seen planes, anything, and I was looking, and I stopped, and a man saw me driving this Model A Ford, and he's, hey, son, come here. So I opened the door and got out and walked over to him. He was by his plane. He says, would you like to go for a ride in an airplane?
Oh my gosh.
And I says, yeah, I would. I never seen an airplane before.
Oh my gosh.
He says, come on, get it in. I'll take you for a ride.
Oh boy.
And so this Saturday, I went for a ride with this strange man.
Wow.
Well, Dad gave me a quarter a day for lunch when I was in school. A quarter would buy. All that week, I didn't buy any lunch. I saved that quarter and put it in my pocket. And when Saturday came again, I went over to that airport. That man was there. And he said, son, I can't now. He said, I got to buy gas. I says, mister, I want to pay you for taking me for a ride last Saturday. And I handed him the 5 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at him. He said, well, thank you. Son's only, gas is only 20 cents a gallon. So this helps a lot.
Uh-huh.
He says, let me go get the gas and then I'll give you another ride.
Oh boy.
So he gave gas. It took me up. While he was flying, he said, son, would you like to learn to fly a plane?
Oh my gosh.
And I said, gee, yeah, this is great. He says, well, I said, I'll tell you now. He says, I can't get you a license because I'm not a licensed instructor.
Right.
But he says, I think it'd be fun to teach a high school boy how to fly a plane.
Oh boy.
So all that next week even, I didn't eat any lunch. I saved those quarters and I had 5 more for him.
Oh boy.
He taught me how to fly a plane.
Oh my gosh.
He really did.
How old were you?
Well, I graduated from Inglewood High almost within a week of World War II starting.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my dad, I says, you know, I'm out of high school now. And I says, I know that you can get drafted into the Army whether you wanted to or not.
Sure.
They could draft you. So I says, I'd like to go enlist in the Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
And my dad says, well, son, he says, right now where that streetcar track is, was there then. And there was a streetcar that went from Torrance clear to downtown Los Angeles, turn around and come back to Torrance. That was a circle on that track that's over there still.
Yeah.
Well, I took that streetcar down to Los Angeles to a building that my dad told me to go to. He says it's a big enlistment center, and you could enlist in the Army Air Corps there. And he says there's an Army Air in that building, and there's Navy in that building, and everything. He says you could enlist in the Army Air Corps there.
Right.
And he says that streetcar will go right by that building.
Oh, okay.
So this Saturday, I got on the streetcar. I went down there and to that building, and this man had been using the quarters and so on, and taught me how to fly a plane.
Right.
His plane.
Right.
But he couldn't give me a license because he wasn't a licensed instructor.
Sure.
Well, when I went in that building, I was going to join the Army Air Corps. Well, I went into this big room, and then I came in the door. There was a big long table there, and there was a Navy chief I spotted. I recognized the Navy looked like he was in the middle of the building, and I guess the Army recruiting sergeant was down at the end of the table because there was an Army young there. But I said, came in the door and came by the other end of the table there right away. There was a red, white, and blue uniform. I didn't know what the hell it was. I'd never seen it before or nothing.
Sure.
Marine Corps.
Ah.
This Marine saw me coming in the door and walking by him. He said, son, are you here to enlist? I said, yeah, I'm here. I'm going to try to enlist in the Army Air Corps. He says, why do you want the Army Air Corps? I says, because I know how to fly a plane. He looked at me, son, you're just a high school boy. What do you mean you know how to fly a plane? I says, because a man taught me how to fly a plane. He says, well, you really are that good? You know how to fly a plane? Do you have a license? I said, no, he was just a civilian. He couldn't give me a license, but he taught me how to fly a plane. So he said, well, how would you like to join the Marine Air Corps? We have an Air Corps. And I got looking at him, and boy, he had a pretty uniform. The guy in the middle of the thing was just a plain Army Air Corps plain uniform, and the guy down at the end was but this guy was in a red, white, and blue uniform, and he says he's got an Air Corps. I says to him, you really want me in your... I do really know how to fly a plane. He says, son, you're going to have to go through boot camp just like any mud Marine, but he says, after you come out of boot camp, he says, you'll go into the Marine Air Corps.
Nice.
Here's your slip. You're recruited. You signed. Now, he says, you'll have to be down to San Diego in a week and go into boot camp. You got to be there within the week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went home and I told my dad what happened, that I joined the Marine Air Corps.
Right.
And my dad says, well, all right. He says, I'll take you down to San Diego at the end of the week. He took me to San Diego, and I went through boot camp. Well, when I was in boot camp, it come out that I knew how to fly an airplane. I was a pilot. So when I come out of boot camp, I went right into the Marine Air Corps, ABG-2, Air Base Group 2, which was right there near North Island in San Diego. Well, they had F-4U fighter planes, was all what they had. But I think even today, that F-4U was the deadliest fighter plane in the whole World War. It had 6 50 caliber machine guns on board,
Oh my
3 in each wing.
Oh boy.
2 fired in each wing straight ahead, and the 3rd fired in a crossing pattern out there.
Oh God.
And when you pull the trigger on the control stick, all 6 of those guns go off at the same time.
Oh boy.
2 out of each wing straight ahead, and the 3rd in a crossing pattern out there. Well, the funny part about it was I was barely over a high school boy, but I knew how to fly a plane.
Yeah.
And when I come out of Marine boot camp, why F4U squadron grabbed me off, and I was issued an F4U fighter plane for but the funny part about it is, it is the deadliest. I think even today, you can imagine 6 when you just pull the trigger. In fact, the trigger was made of wood on the control stick.
Oh boy.
But when you pull that trigger, all 6 of those guns went off at the same time.
Wow.
Well, I come out of boot camp. I was issued into this F4U squadron, and every pilot in that squadron was a very matured fighter pilot.
Right.
And here is a high school boy now saying he's a part of their squadron.
Oh boy.
They thought that was the biggest joke in my whole time in the squadron. Why, I was the high school boy, but the joke, and they babied me and so on. Well, they
liked you.
As I say, I was in this squadron, and we I was only in it a few weeks until I was told to report down to a dock in San Diego there in a ship that was leaving for Guadalcanal, and I was a part of that squadron.
Oh boy.
And so I led World War II. Well, in this squadron, all of the other pilots were grown, older men, and they thought it was a lot of fun to have a high school boy in their squadron and so on. And actually, I became an ace.
Did you?
Well,
I'm not surprised.
all of my part of the war there was from Guadalcanal, which was an island that just off of Japan.
Right.
And all of the fighting, air fighting, was not over land, it was over the water between Guadalcanal and Tokyo. And, well,